I got a controversial one for you. Klipsch are not known to measure the best. All right, you see where I'm coming?
Yeah.
Well, you guys have all the measuring device in the world, obviously.
Yep.
Why? Like, you sound, it would be better for marketing if you could say, oh man, our speaker measures like flat line across, right? Perfect, just go buy it. But it does not.
Well, and I'll tell you why. One of the things is that, particularly on the LF, is how you measure it makes a difference, right? If you measure it in full space, you're going to have the LF lower down. Even a direct radiator goes down.
Okay.
So we specify in certain conditions, like for example, the Klipsch horn, the sensitivity and the frequency response are eighth space, not half space, not ground plane, not full space, not even quarter. It's eighth space. When you measure a Klipsch horn in eighth space in a corner, anechoically, that's what you'll get. What we get.
Okay, but I'm just thinking, right?
Yep.
Is there not a standard way to measure speakers because it reflects more what the living room is, right? So.
Well, yeah, there is, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right way to measure a particularly corner-loaded speaker to begin with, right?
Okay.
So, in fact, a lot of the first speakers back in the 30s and stuff were all horn-loaded to begin with, and they were typically for corner loading.
Okay.
Now, if everybody had followed along in that direction, then maybe the specification would say it's got to be in eighth space. You got to do it. You got to do it anechoically. Well, once we started going to seal systems, direct radiator seal systems and stuff, that kind of cut out a lot of the complexity of designing the speaker. But people always tended to. What I always say is people tend to go the easy route or what they're most comfortable with. Okay. So when the majority of speakers started going in that direction, well, there is a very typical way to measure that. We've also tended to get away from specifying how we measure systems, or like, for example, a Scala or even a K-horn. Now, I will say yes, there were some things that showed anomalies in the frequency response that are there.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the other thing too. Our philosophy starts off with low, high efficiency. That's our number one.
Mm-hmm.
And in this order, Pablo would tell me, this is the way he equated them as order of importance. High efficiency because it gives you low distortion, dynamic range, making sure that when you curve it at this level and then you curve it at this level, it remains linear.
Okay.
Controlled coverage, understanding how we're spewing energy into a room.
Okay.
And a newer term for that is looking at power response.
Power response.
Yeah, the power response. And the last one, the marketing people tend to change it, but I always change it back to the way he said it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is controlled frequency response.
Okay.
Because a controlled frequency response, if you have it in a certain way, in order to measure or to give you a flat power response, what's more important in the room?
What is?
A flat power response or a flat frequency response? Well, from our perspective, a flat power response.
A flat power response is more important than a flat frequency response. Okay, man, it feels like I need to take a course to understand the difference. I'll take your word on it, man.
No, the biggest difference is that in a room you don't have the energy being absorbed. It's reflected and bounces back at you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so if you look at that from that perspective, because it does affect how you hear, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at it, and that's how you get room loading, right? For example, that's how you get room loading, right? Because the energy that if you place it out here in this pond that's going away from you, it's going away. Mm-hmm. In a room, no, now it's coming back.
Right.
And so that builds up this power response that we all like to look at. And that tells you, I can look at a power response and pretty much guess what the frequency response is
I see. So, but each room is different then. The power response will be different for each room. So what do you use as a standard?
Well, for us, that's why controlled coverage is important.
Okay.
Because if we decide that we want to keep the energy within this space, the room tends to affect it less and less.
Oh, okay. Okay. I see.
I've been with Klipsch this June. Friday the 13th is when I started for Klipsch.
Yeah.
Friday the 13th, 1986.
Yeah, you never remember. You never forget that.
Yeah, exactly. I will never forget that.
Yeah. So Sue, it's my contact at Klipsch,
Yes,
right?
Sue.
She told me like you're like the most important person at this show. I must come and talk to you about the new.
I'm gonna have to give her money now.
Just buy her coffee. It's okay. So you guys just launched the Klipsch horn and the new Scala.
The new
right?
Scalas, yeah.
All right. So, what is different about it?
Like I was telling you earlier, I talked with Paul Klipsch a lot. We just became friends.
Yeah.
Really good friends. He was more than just my boss.
Mm-hmm.
He became like my third grandfather.
Wow.
Yeah, me and him just get to be really close, and so I was blessed that I was mentored by him. Mm-hmm. And so we used to have a bunch of talks about his original 5 speakers that started Klipsch. The Klipsch horn was the first, right?
Klipsch horn was the first. Okay.
And all the things that we thought of doing to them, that he wanted to do to them.
Okay.
And so, when he passed away, all these things that we talked about, we started seeing things come up I started seeing them as an opportunity to do the things that he wanted to do.
Oh, okay.
And so we've gone through the Heresy 3, we've gone Cornwall 3, we did the Heresy 4, the Forte 3, the Forte 4. So we did the La Scala 2. We had the AK5 Klipsch horn. Then we did the AK6, some of the things that Paul wanted to do. And then we had the La Scala AO5. Well, in those particular models, one of the things that Paul Klipsch and I talked about back in the 90s was anytime we were going to design a new horn, we had decided that we were going to do tractrix.
Sorry, what?
It's like the exponential is an equation.
Okay.
So we have the exponential horn.
Okay.
Tractrix is an equation
Okay.
that describes how the area expands. We did a whole bunch of testing and stuff and came to the conclusion that tractrix should be an equation we should really look forward to doing, or the advantages that it offers from an acoustic perspective.
All right.
He decided that every horn we designed after that would be a tractrix horn.
A tractor's horn.
Tractrix, yep.
Okay.
And so about, I guess it was maybe a year ago, our vendor that shoots the plastic for the 401 horn, which is the mid-range horn in the La Scala and the Klipsch horn, said the tool's wearing out. There's nothing we can do to it anymore. We're gonna have to tool up a new horn.
A new horn, okay.
And the 401 is the last exponential horn in the Klipsch line, period.
Okay.
It only lasted 40 years, Only 40. Yeah, we used crappy steel. So I said, well, I guess now's the time.
Okay.
So I designed a 400 hertz horn.
A 400 hertz horn.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's the 401 basically that says that it's a 400 hertz.
Okay.
So I designed a 400 hertz tractrix horn, and also incorporated some of the techniques that we use for if the directivity starts to drop in order to maintain consistent coverage over the whole bandwidth of the horn. I fondly call them the mumps.
The mumps.
Yeah,
Okay.
the mumps, because measles was taken. So I had, and the marketing people couldn't come up with a better name.
Okay. Okay.
And so the horn got infected and got the mumps. And so it's a brand new mid-range horn in the Klipsch one in the La Scala with a 3-inch titanium compression driver.
Okay.
That we use. Actually, we use it in cinema.
Cinema.
Yeah, it's a very large compression driver.
Okay. So
And-
what's the advantage of going that way? In cinema, I can understand, right? Like,
Well, if you imagine what you would have to do in cinema and then using it in a home environment, because the diaphragm is so large, obviously we put a lot of work into that because of cinema for robustness and SBL and lower distortion. Why not use it in a home system?
okay.
So then on the tweeter, I'd already switched the horn to a tractrix tweeter, but what we hadn't done to the K-horn and La Scala was provide wide dispersion beyond the exit of the driver.
Okay.
So we had done it to the Heresy 4, the Cornwall 4, the Forte 4, and the Jubilee.
Okay.
So now was the chance to put it in the K-horn and La Scalas. On the La Scala, I wanted to take it lower in frequency, so there's a patent we have called horn-loaded vented system.
Okay.
Where basically you horn load a vented system, not just a sealed system, but a vented, directly into the throat of the horn. And by doing that, we were able to take it from like 50 hertz down to 40 hertz. Now, it doesn't sound like much, 10 hertz.
Right.
But that, if you think about it, the top string on a four-string bass is 41 hertz.
Okay.
So it's we don't hear linearly, we hear logarithmically. So from 50 to 40 was quite the jump.
I see. You're talking about La Scala, right? So La Scala, I've heard it many times. My friends has it. They love it to death. But one thing we all notice is the bass on it. All right, you know where I'm coming. The bass, right? Because you have a 15-inch woofer hitting the back of the speaker and then coming back. So the bass is texture, is detail, but you don't get that dynamic punch you in the face kind of bass. All right?
No, I agree.
Why go this direction when the Forte, those ones, you'll punch you in the face?
Well, because even though it doesn't have go down like as low as a Forte, you can't beat the distortion levels that are reduced.
Oh, so this reduced distortion.
Oh yeah.
So what does that translate to? What I hear?
Well, it's a lot more dynamic and clean. In other words, what you hear is you don't hear the artifacts of intermod distortion.
Okay.
Because those have been suppressed because the diaphragm is not having to move so much.
Okay.
The more it moves, the more intermodulation distortion is generated. And intermod is probably the worst offender because it's not harmonically related.
All right, so for my viewers, my YouTube viewers, all right?
Hello, YouTube viewers.
Can you summarize in simple English for them?
Okay.
Why should they choose the new La Scala? Why buy the new La Scala? What is new between the new La Scala and the last generation? What is the difference?
Well, the mid-range horn.
The mid-range horn?
Yep, and the compression driver for the mid-range horn. This wide dispersion extended phasing plug on the tweeter, so we keep it wide because typically on a compression driver, when the wavelength is smaller than the throat of the compression driver, it beams. It starts to beam, and so you start to locate them, like the harmonics of like S's, sibilants. Cymbals, they start to relocate back to the tweeter because the coverage pattern isn't wide enough to recreate the sound stage. So that's why to me it's important that even past 15, even up to 20K, that you have the coverage patterns wide because now it doesn't distract. The whole thing now is here. So for example, you hear a singer singing and they go right because in the upper harmonics of sibilants, because the pattern is narrower, it goes from like the singer being here and all the harmonics of the S's go back to the tweeter.
See?
Yeah.
But the original last generation La Scala, did it have the same issue? Or
That's always been an issue with any compression driver horn.
Okay, so you resolved this issue then? You improved on that?
Yes, exactly. And it's only because again the 4 series of the Heresy, Forte, and Cornwall already have their wide dispersion phasing plugs. The Jubilee, when it was introduced with a wide dispersion phasing plug, and now we're bringing up the Klipsch horn and the La Scala, because of the mid-range horn. Now I said, well, we're also going to do this.
Oh, okay, I get it now.
Even though just the horn change itself, it just sounds so much natural. And that's one of the reasons, because we can go through equations and data all you want, but ultimately you still got to use these. Yeah. And so one of the things that we notice, especially even in cinema, where you have huge auditoriums and people, you can't see the speakers, we would have shootouts and they could pick out the most natural sounding. Now in cinema, dialogue is very important, right? It has to sound natural. Yeah. So even in those kinds of environments, those guys were picking the Klipsch system because we use tractrix. And so that was also, if you can detect that kind of nuance in a cinema screen, of course, in a more intimate and home environment, it's a huge advantage.
Right. And also just now when I was listening, I'm like, I feel the bass punch. And I was like, excuse me, is that how it's supposed to be? And last time I remember La Scala was not like that.
I know.
Why?
Why? Well, Hornload invented the La Scala.
Yeah.
And we've taken it down 10 hertz. But you have to remember that even when you port a system, a direct radiator system, you have a woofer and you have a port, right?
Okay.
What a lot of people don't understand is when the subwoofer goes low, the output is coming from the port, not the woofer.
Okay.
Because the woofer almost comes to a standstill. You're using the air that's trapped inside the port to resonate, so that becomes your acoustic source. So the bigger you make that port, the more impact it'll have.
Right.
So we have two nice sized ports in the La Scala, plus they're coupled to a horn now. And so that area is now the actual mouth of the horn.
Okay, so in the one previous was not like that.
It was not like that. No, it was a sealed system. It was a sealed system. And I should also I'm going to confess, La Scala has always been, has a sweet spot for me. A soft spot in my heart for it. That was my first Klipsch system that I ever owned. I never even heard of Klipsch till I came to work for Klipsch. And in 3 months in there, I bought a pair of La Scalas.
Oh, the same.
And so you're right, it never had that kind of growl, but what it did have was clean. It was, from 50 hertz up, whatever you heard, I could tell a stand-up bass versus an electric bass.
Okay, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because how clean it is.
Yes.
Well, now, because of the horn-loaded vented system, it's got some growl.
Yes, I was shocked. That's why I was like, what? I said, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great because a lot of my friends who own La Scala, they struggle in the sense like they go buy subwoofers and this and that. But now when I listen to that one, I say you don't need subwoofer. It's done, man. Right?
Well, and even then, when you have a horn-loaded system on the LF, and then you go to a direct radiator sub. Okay, let's say you want to put a subwoofer with La Scalas. If you're going from a horn-loaded LF, and then you go to a direct radiator sub, that transition in the distortion components is not subtle.
100% agree, because that's the struggle my friends have when they try to get a sub to go with it. It's never perfect. It's always like,
Well, soon we'll have a solution for that too.
Oh, must be a secret sub coming out on the way.
Let's just say that you won't have to go direct radiator.
Yeah. Okay, I see where you're going. So, anything else to add? For somebody who's looking to buy a Klipsch, La Scala, or the horn, who has never owned a Klipsch, why would you choose a Klipsch over all the convenient speakers here?
Well, for one thing, I think the La Scala and the Klipsch horn, there's no doubt they've stood the test of time.
Correct.
But just because they were designed in a certain direction doesn't mean that we are totally content with them. Paul Klipsch was never like that. He was never content. I came to work for Paul Klipsch when I was 82 years old. Now, you expect a person that's 82 years old to be set in his ways, right?
Right.
No, Paul Klipsch was not like that. He wanted to push the state-of-the-art, state-of-the-science. And now what we've done with the clay horn and the Scala is every trick that we know, every technique, even some patented stuff, was poured into them. I think the biggest difference that if somebody has even an AK-6 and they get an AK-7, I think that the things that we changed, mid-range horn, compression driver, extended phasing plug, even with the passive steep slopes, and then if you go active with the time alignment and stuff like that, the difference is not going to be subtle.
Oh yeah, just the base alone. What I heard is that alone. That's it. Take my money, you know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's not going to be subtle, and you know, we poured everything we know into it.
I see.
All our current tech is in now. The king of the hill is the king of what started Klipsch, the K-horn Scala.
So, because I didn't read all the papers on literature on it, so my understanding is that now there's DSP.
Yep, that's
in
it.
it.
Yeah,
right?
that's the active processor that you can buy now, because it comes with the passive, so you can hook it up to channel, you know, and listen to your tubes on them. A lot of people still do that with the Klipsch horn, particular Klipsch horns, and they love their their tube amp. If you want to then save your pennies up and get four more channels of amplification and buy this processor, you can go totally active Triamp
Okay, I see.
with the DSP unit.
Okay, good. How about we go listen to it then? We're finished?
Yeah.
Okay, then thank you. I hope you hit the record button. I'll cry.